I'm Ann Dart.
I'm Tracy Stormy.
And I'm Kathy Knight.
And together we are...
It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club.
A podcast for mystery lovers.
Welcome. Hello, and welcome to the third in our In Agatha's Footsteps special editions of It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club. We are very, very excited. Today we have as our honoree Phillippi Ryan, who is a wonderful author.
Phillippi Ryan is the on-air investigative reporter for Boston's WHDH-TV. She's won 34 Emmys and dozens more journalism honors. The nationally best-selling author of 10 mysteries, Ryan's also an award winner in her second profession with 5 Agathas, 3 Anthonys, 2 Macavitys, the Daphne, and for the other woman, the coveted Mary Higgins Clark Award. Critics call her a master of suspense and a superb and gifted storyteller, and she is the only author to have won the Agatha in 4 different categories: Best First, Best Novel, Best Short Story, and Best Nonfiction. Her novels have been named the Library Journal's Best of 2014, 2015, and 2016. Hank's newest book is the acclaimed standalone psychological suspense thriller Trust Me, which Suspense Magazine's reviewer calls by far one of the best thrillers I've read in years. The book list starred review says a knockout, and New York Post Book Bub, Real Simple Magazine, and Crime Reads named it one of the best thrillers of summer 2018. Hank is a founder of MWA University and past president of National Sisters in Crime.
Well, I hope you enjoy this interview with Miss Ryan because we definitely did. Stay tuned. Welcome to the show, Phillippi Ryan.
That's great. You all have a wonderful relationship.
Yes, we do.
And reading is a big part of it, especially mysteries.
Start reading mysteries together from the beginning a long time ago?
Well, I started as a child. My mother was an avid reader. She got me started, and then when Tracy got old enough to read, I started giving her Nancy Drews and the Hardy Boys. She liked those.
I quickly moved to Agatha Christie probably around 11 or 12.
Yeah, that's where we started, and we're still reading away.
It's so great because I think Nancy Drew was a gateway for so many of us, and so many of us who turned into readers and writers started out with those stories, and for some of us, it really resonated. The idea that a young woman could be smart and help out and figure out clues and get the answers and do good and be confident and be strong, and that being smart was a good thing.
Yeah, especially back in the 50s when women were supposed to shut up and do what men told them.
Exactly. So I grew up in really rural Indiana, and I would read up in the hayloft of the barn behind our house.
Oh, wow.
I know my sister and I used to ride our ponies to the library and get books. We would fill up the saddlebags with books and then read up in the hayloft.
Oh,
and
wow.
That's where I fell in love with Nancy Drew. And that's where I fell in love with Sherlock Holmes. My parents lost me for like a month reading every Sherlock Holmes short story and novella. And then, just as you did, I found Agatha Christie and Ngaio Marsh and Josephine Tey and Dorothy Sayers and Marjorie Allingham, all those wonderful golden age mysteries. And that's where I fell in love with mystery. That's where I fell in love with storytelling. That's where I fell in love with sort of the architecture of the mystery, that a really good author could lure you in and keep you guessing in a story that you cared about, and then in the end could surprise you, with a ending that was satisfying but logical, where I could have figured that out.
Yeah.
And everything was there and fair, not some weird second cousin who shows up on page 342 and you think, what? You've never talked about that person.
That's one of our biggest pet peeves.
No, exactly. And so a mystery has to be interesting and intriguing and page-turning and surprising, but it has to be fair in the surprise.
Well, you have definitely figured that out. Your books are always page-turners for me. I devour devour them.
Well, thank you. I've been a television reporter for 40 years, which is completely crazy.
You're not old enough to be.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
You started when you were 3.
Oh, thank you. I love that. I have fooled you. But I think that one of the things I learned as a reporter after all these years, and I'm still on the air at Channel 7 in Boston as an investigative reporter, is how to tell a story. Because whether it's doing investigative journalism or whether it's doing crime fiction, the story has to have a beginning, middle, and end. It has to have a character who you care about. It needs an important problem that needs to be solved. You're tracking down clues and following leads. You want the good guys to win and the bad guys to get what's coming to them. And in the end, you want to change the world a little bit and you want to get some justice. So when you're watching my stories on TV, I don't want you to change the channel. And when you're reading my thrillers, I want you to sort of miss your stop on the subway because you just want to read one more page. And so that rhythm, that music, that advancing the story skill of television reporting, I think, has really informed my writing. I don't want you to be distracted. I want you to be so focused and riveted and compelled in a book like Trust Me. When you say you couldn't put it down, that's what I want to hear from readers. It's a joy to do, and it's very difficult to do. I mean, we can talk about the process later. When I finish my books, I know they're finished because I have sort of tears in my eyes of satisfaction and completion, and that there's a story that I have created that people care about, and that feeling when you walk out of a movie and you say, oh, I'm glad I saw that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want you to say, oh, I'm glad I read that. That's the feeling that I'm going for. It changed my life a little bit.
Well, this book definitely did. I think all of us have been touched by grief, and you did such an amazing job. I loved Mercer's journey, and the writing of the numbers on the mirror, it really spoke to me. I thought that was beautiful.
Oh my goodness, thank you. You know, for readers who haven't read this, and this is something that's really on page 1 of the book, so there's no spoilers at all. The main character, Mercer Hennessy, is a journalist, a writer who gave up and coming career as a magazine writer to be a mom, to take care of her darling new daughter and her beloved husband. As the book opens, she's in incredible grief, heartbroken because she's lost her husband and daughter in a car accident. I mean, this happens on page 1, so you'll know this instantly. And as the book opens, she's writing numbers with her finger in the steam of the bathroom mirror. Condensation on the mirror, 442, the number of days that she's been alone. And I almost started crying when I thought of it. And I have to tell you, I am not quite sure how I thought of that expression of grief. And I think when we're unhappy, it seems like a day is very long and it's very difficult to put one foot in front of the other. So from the standpoint of grief, counting the days felt like a wonderful way to express the sorrow and the days of mourning. And we know that you mourn for a year, right? That's what the classic thing is. Women wear black for a year when their husbands die. And this not only showed how she has gone farther than that, she's been sad for longer than that, but that this amount of time has passed. So we as readers are ready for exactly what you say, for Mercer to be ready for a transformation.
Right.
You know, if she were writing 3 on the mirror or 32, she'd be at a different point in her life, wouldn't she?
Oh, definitely.
And we understand that as readers. We love her right off the bat, for better or for worse, right? Because we change about her and she changes too.
Well, there were a couple places in the book I just had to put it down and walk away because I had tears in my eyes and couldn't read any further because of the way you portrayed the grief that she was going through. It just broke my heart.
Well, thank you. As a writer, there's nothing that makes me happier than that a character that I write, that I made up, you know, this is so interesting, isn't it? A person I made up touched you so much as a real person. And the other thing, as sort of an experience as an author, is when I write, I become the character. It's as if Mercer's brain, the main character of Trust Me, is Mercer Hennessy. As if Mercer Hennessy's brain is my brain and her thoughts are my thoughts. I have sat at my computer for more than a year, part of the time being Mercer Hennessy. And that's very sad. I mean, I'm a happy person. I have a wonderful life and I have a darling husband, and there's nothing about my life that I don't love. To spend hours being the opposite of that was very interesting for me and very compelling for me. And to hear you say that that touched you, I'm happy with that. Of course, I also had to be Ashlyn Bryant.
I was just going to say, did your husband run and hide?
And I have to tell you, Ashlyn Bryant was the most compelling psychopathic person.
She was a trip.
Oh my goodness. You did such a good job of creating her. Just my hat's off to you. Oh.
Well, thank you. Ashlyn Bryant is a young woman, a beautiful, notorious young woman who is charged with murdering her little daughter. And no matter how terrible a mother someone might be, or how terrible a person someone might be, to have a mother kill a daughter is unthinkable. That's why you read so many times in newspapers, it's never the mother. It can't be the mother. It's not the mother. No matter if we have children or not, this is something that is unimaginable. Ashlyn might seem like a psychopath in many ways, but that doesn't mean she's guilty. And that's one of the things I wanted to explore also. We may instantly not like her, and then we might gradually think, maybe she's just been misjudged. Who's to say that just because we don't like someone doesn't mean they're a murderer?
Absolutely. And I think that was what was so compelling about this book. And there were so many times in the book that I questioned her innocence or whether she was guilty. And that's what made this so good. You never knew from each page how you were going to feel about Ashland.
Well, it's interesting because, and I agree with you, and thank you. Again, I feel like I'm saying thank you throughout, but I am so thrilled to talk to people who get the book. So, you trust me so much. But I got the idea, if I can take a second to tell you, my husband is a criminal defense attorney, and he does a lot of hopeless cases and a lot of really scary, gruesome, unfortunate, sad cases. He was representing a client in a particularly gruesome murder trial. And one Sunday morning, I was sitting at the kitchen table and he was practicing his closing arguments in that case. And his client, of course, had been charged with a murder. And my husband, Jonathan, was practicing his closing, and he was so good and so eloquent and so compelling and so convincing. And I said to him, sweetheart, you are such a good storyteller, and you have used the evidence in this trial so beautifully to reflect a narrative where your client is absolutely innocent. It is so convincing that I can't imagine that a jury can do anything but find this person not guilty. I said to him, sweetheart, this is a slam dunk acquittal. And then I thought about the prosecutor's wife sitting across the other side of Boston, listening to her husband practice his closing argument, the prosecutor, in the same case. And I wondered if she was saying, oh, honey, you've been so compelling, and you have created this wonderful story that certainly will wind up with a slam dunk conviction. This is a slam dunk conviction. And I just sort of gasped with that realization, because I thought, there's the story my husband is telling, and there's the story the prosecutor is telling, and it's exactly the same evidence with exactly the same murderous outcome. In one case, the story is created so that the person is guilty. In one version of it, the story is created so the person is innocent. Two opposite responses to exactly the same evidence. And I started thinking that probably the truth was somewhere in between. So that's why it says on the front of Trust Me, there are three sides to every story: yours, mine, and the truth. So the idea that you couldn't figure it out, that's exactly the point. It's exactly the point.
Your book designer was very, very good with the word liar stuck underneath those words on the cover.
I hope your readers will get the book right now and look at it and turn it sideways and see that the secret word on the cover of Trust Me. You know what happens when you get your cover, when an author sees their cover for the first time? You get an email from your editor, and the subject line of the email says, your cover, and it has an exclamation mark, which is supposed to indicate to you that you're going to love it. Please don't not like this, because we don't want to argue with you over the cover.
Right.
Right? My finger sort of hovered over the mouse because I thought, this is a life-changing moment for me. I'm going to see this cover. And so I opened the cover and I saw the cover right side up and I thought, okay, well, that looks good. You know, I like the paper tears and I like how that looks. And then I saw what the secret word was if you turn the book sideways, and I gasped. I so agree that it's completely beautiful.
Well, I didn't notice it until I had almost finished the book. I just sat and stared at it, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is perfect.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because once you see it, I know all your listeners are thinking, what? I don't see. Let me get that book and look at it. But once you see it, you can't